All my fabulous and wonderful friends. I want to go over a couple things, like usual, that I see in the news. So the G20 summit in the capital of Argentina, Buenos Aires, Spanish for good air, just happened. And of course, Trump refused, on paper to meet with Putin. And that is what the deep state, the shadow government, the permanent state, the Hillary Clinton camp wanted. They wanted to, and the military-industrial complex, they wanted to isolate Trump from Putin, make it politically impossible for him to assuage, to lower tensions between the two rival countries. We don't even have real reasons why we don't like Russia. And if you know history, basically if you know history, you know that is true. And there's traffic. Sorry, forgive the look. It's just a temporary thing. We didn't need a big enemy. The American people didn't need a big enemy. And that goes back to Dwight Eisenhower's warning to the American people that the industrial military complex was something that needed to be contained. That every time we built, some useless weapon of death, we spent money on that instead of a bridge, instead of a school, instead of a library, instead of a hospital, instead of more first responders. The cash got siphoned from things that would help the American people, put more money in the American people's pocket, make American people's lives better, so this military industrial complex could keep raking in the money. He warned us about that. Well, it did not want to go down. And also JFK did. He had the speech that talked about, a world order, that a very secretive world order that as a free democracy, freedom-loving people, we were against. And of course, he was subsequently assassinated. He went too far talking about a secret order. I mean, he's just going to start calling people out. Now, imagine if there were secret organizations that did control the flow of history, the flow of the future, the flow of geopolitical relationships. Do you think that would ever make it into the history books? I highly doubt it. JFK came out and spoke about it and was subsequently murdered. This is maybe a tangent, but it is what it is. The military-industrial complex wanted a big enemy, and so even though we had von Braun, the inventor of modern-day rocketry from Germany, who happened to be an SS officer, we had him after World War II. We could have been the first into space. His group was actually sabotaged. The Soviets were allowed to put Sputnik, which was a useless beeping satellite in low orbit that eventually died. But what it did, it was a great propaganda achievement for the American government to make the Americans fear the Soviets. Not only that, we had superior technology. You got to remember, Russia was a backwards peasant nation that they took on 200 divisions. Britain and America together took on 20. It took on the bulk of the German army. Even war criminal Winston Churchill admitted that the Russians tore the guts out of the German army. They got very close to Moscow, bogged down in the winter, as history from Napoleon and everyone else should understand. Russia is not a very favorable country to be invaded, but at the same time they suffered huge losses. Not only Russians, but the Soviet Union, all those countries together, it was like 20 million people they lost, and they were just industrializing. Karl Marx's critique of capitalism was talking about a post-industrialized nation that had already gone through the Industrial Revolution, which Russia hadn't done. So when it installed communism, what it did was simply take out a very corrupt, autocratic leader that was, the European royalty branch known as the Romanovs in Russia, who our own media described as the richest man in the world. But Russia was not prime for a communist revolution, in that there were no factories set up that could be turned into, workers' co-ops where the workers actually own the company and the products of their labor, the sales. So of course they care about it. They don't feel exploited or whatever. another tangent. But anyways, the bottom line is Russia was not as a big a threat as they made it out to be. The CIA actually found out that it was manufacturing the numbers, reporting on the size of the economy, and I'm pretty sure, I've read things, they make communism look bad all the way around. And again, that is something that rationally the imperialists, the elite, those with a lot of money would want to do. They know how to control and rule a population. They are taught in their private schools those sort of tactics, and they do not want a revolution. We have been taught to hate and fear communism because the bottom line is there's a good chance it would kill those exploiters, and it obviously would strip them of their wealth. That is not something they want to do. It is rational for them to concoct a story that do whatever they can to show you that communism not only doesn't work, that it is evil and it is something to be feared. But that is all the past. I'm talking about the present. Today, that military-industrial complex still needs an enemy. And if they just lost, allegedly North Korea, they have Cuba. They have no big country that Americans can fear. So they do whatever they can to make Russia look like a big threat to us. And they did not want what the people want, which is us to just be able to be friends with the country. We could travel there and exchange technology and exchange everything, whatever. Russian girls are pretty. No, that was a tangent. That was a joke. That was a joke. But they want to they don't care about anything else except fattening their pockets. NATO was, of course, ostensibly to stop the spread of communism. Communism went away. Well, besides China. But the thing is, Nixon went into China, Henry Kissinger, they made a deal with China to help isolate Russia, which is why China was able to somewhat avoid the capitalist encirclement and sabotage that usually takes place in a communist country. Everywhere else, communists their countries are socialist, not even communists. Socialists are called communists, and the CIA is trying to do coups. They're being isolated, sanctions put on them, everything they can, attacking their food stock, poisoning their everything from their pigs, like I believe happened in Cuba. The CIA did a swine flu there. Whatever they can. China was able to avoid that. That's why China is an economic power today. And American media would like to tell you it is now capitalist, but the bottom line is a lot of the industry are still state-owned. The state is making money, which is, our utilities should be nationalized. Instead, they are backed. Their mistakes are backed, like as in California right now. Their mistakes are backed by the taxpayers. So we not only have to pay them for profit, but if they go into a negative, we have to protect them and pay for the liability of when their smart boxes cause fires or their electrical lines cause fires, which is completely effing ridiculous. These people are not inventors. Old money connected to very old money families, and they should be nationalized. And in China, that and many other things are nationalized. That income stays in the people's hands, does not go to the few. So it still is communist. It is not controlled by capital. America is completely controlled by capital, like nothing else. We are controlled by corporations. They control our government. China is not like that as of yet, and they have been able to prosper. Money has been put into, instead of the military-industrial complex, into building infrastructure, underground, subways, etc. Anyways, going back to G20. So one meeting that Trump did have was with Xi Jinping, the president of China. They talked about a couple things. They made a deal. Trump's going to suspend the increase in tariffs as long as China starts importing more produce, which I believe was already part of the secret deal they had initially when Trump stopped talking so bad about China. I'd actually spoken with an official connected to the government, high up in China at the time, and he said there was a secret agreement between the two. But so they agreed to bring in more produce, and also, oh my God, I gotta get in the carpool lane. And also to curb attempt to curb fentanyl, which is a opioid that is stronger than heroin. And they agreed to do this. Then Trump went on and tweeted that he hopes the Chinese government uses its maximum penalty or whatever to go after these fentanyl producers. The thing is, the Chinese government had already made illegal 23 analogs of fentanyl. So what that means, an analog is like if you make a substance illegal, fentanyl at its base molecular composition, they can just tweak it a little bit, add something. Now it's legal, but it still has the same medical or drug effect that it initially had. So not only did they do that, they had already illegalized 2 of the precursors that are used to make fentanyl. And there was a report that came out last January that said like 7 deaths were connected to the Chinese importation using Chinese manufacturers to bring in this stuff. And you compare that with Vioxx. Vioxx killed 60,000 people in America, and a lot of those deaths in America are attributed to these substances being combined with things like cocaine. And China doesn't really have any responsibility in that. Moreover, I'm afraid that what this really is an attack on the Chinese pharmaceutical and chemical industries, which have the great potential, because they're advancing, of lowering American citizens' drug costs, which are, incredibly high, where they make, the price of insulin has just skyrocketed. For no other reason is that other than they have a captive audience that people have to buy it from, the American manufacturer. So, and the thing, you look at the CIA, it's been proven that the CIA was complicit, was actively importing cocaine. At the same time, it's operatives who had been helping the CIA as governor, Bill Clinton as governor, helping bring in that cocaine. There's a Tom Cruise movie on it, American Made, that he went and did the 100-to-1 crack cocaine law, where crack was, even though there's less cocaine in it, it's like baking soda and cocaine, it was punished 100 times more. So sabotaging the ghettos, CIA importing cocaine, who knows what they're doing with this fentanyl. If they're the ones that mixed, biolabs around the world, American biolabs, have gone up. So they could be making this, and at the same time, other countries could make this, and at the same time, China had already legalized these things. And now what I'm getting to is that Trump basically told China to murder its own citizens. That would be a good thing. And what that does, just like him talking about the Khashoggi murder and saying, hey, it's not a big deal, we need to sell arms, is it lets people know around the world, believe it or not, there's a lot of people around the world that still believed under Barack Obama, how eloquent he was, that America did have some higher principles, that we really did fight for the good of the people and for freedom. But when Trump comes on, he says, yeah, I know, this journalist was murdered, and which means they're stopping the flow of information. If the government tries to control information, it's trying to control everything. Because if all you get is lies, you make false decisions. You don't really know what's going on. So you can make false decisions on who you support, who you vote for, because all you know is lies. You're living in a fake matrix paradigm, fake reality. But he just said, hey, we got to sell weapons. Now that awakens our allies in the Middle East. Oh my God, I've been tricked, I've been working with Americans against my own government, thinking that they really did have higher principles, when Obama, with the Muslim heritage was in office. I really thought, that they were about something, that they did something good, but now maybe not. Well, it's the same thing with Trump. Trump comes on spouting lies about China and saying that it's, expansionist and imperialist, and China has never been that in 5,000 years. They invented the central rudder, gunpowder, the compass. They went around and all they did was trade and give gifts, not exploit, not conquer. They built the Great Wall not to conquer, to keep people out. But still, Americans need to fear something. The military-industrial complex pokes it. And when it reacts, they go, look, they reacted, they're imperialists. But the thing is, now he's telling those people in China, telling the world, go kill the pharmaceutical manufacturers that happen to ship it to America. And that is not, human rights is a weird word, but that is not humane. Wrong or however you put it. Do not kill someone for selling something that is not killing someone. I mean, it's just, imagine if we have that law, then any cop that doesn't like you, you pull him up, he pulls you over and you're like, dude, you're seriously enforcing this BS law when you have all this stuff happening in the government, you guys just ignore it, and you're coming after me and ruining my life, and all I'm trying to do is just scrape by? And then he could just throw some fentanyl on your car. You're getting killed now, bitch. Like, we cannot, whether you don't think you're ever going to do anything criminal, and I guarantee you have, if all the criminals were executed in America or the world, there might just be nobody left. If anyone that's ever done some sort of crime, we've all done crime as adults. Mother Teresa, I don't know. There might be some people, but the vast majority of us, the vast majority of us have. And just because you don't do something doesn't mean you shouldn't care about what happens to the next guy, because one day there is going to be something you do that those in power don't like, or they don't really care about, but they want to go after your group, and there's going to be nobody around to protect you because you didn't protect anybody else. But the thing is, America, the government has made both China and Russia prepare for war. And how do you think they're going to take him suggesting that they use the full penalty, the highest penalty of the law in China, which is death, something that is generally used for people who, kind of in the case of fentanyl, that have done great public harm. But still, that is China's decision. And you look at America, North America, 1 out of 4 deaths that happen drug-related happens in North America. Out of the world, we're less than 10% of the world's population. So there's other socioeconomic factors, social factors, other reasons why we have a drug culture. And how can you tell another country to go murder people for drugs when we won't do it ourselves? And if that is what he wants, if that is what the government wants, I don't know how many wake-up calls American population is going to need before we are woken up, before we go to the streets like France does. Hold on. To just finish it up, it is unfortunate because America, we are the greatest nation. Our land, so many factors make it incredible, and the military-industrial complex, CIA, they have just squandered for their own agenda. We could have just been more isolationist, more friendly, still been strong. Nobody's ever going to invade us, even if we didn't spend 10 times more than the next countries on defense. American people, we have more guns than anybody. The world knows that. We are not allowing another country to invade us. So we did not need to spend all this money. We could have invested in other technologies, in innovators, instead of war, things that cause destruction and chaos, and no man is an island. Thank you. Have a good day.